So here's the story about the burst. This is funny. We're doing a prison reform benefit at Notre Dame. The headliner was John Denver, and then Dirt Band, and Prine, and Goodman, and this buddy of theirs named Jimmy Buffett, who came out and played a couple of songs acoustic with him. And it was great. It was amazing. You know, it was anyway, great evening of music, you know, and a cool cause, as it were. So I'm sitting backstage, and this kid comes back in the room, and he says, "Where's your sunburst?" And I said, "Oh, man, my sunburst got stolen like a month ago." Because the Guitar Player magazine had done a story about me, you know, and there's a picture of me playing this burst. And he's like, "Oh, man." I said, "What do you do?" And he said, "Well, I've got a big old station wagon, and I'm driving around the country hitting pawn shops and, you know, looking for old." This is in the pioneer days of guys becoming vintage guitar dealers, essentially. It was really a thing that just George grew, and there was a handful of guys that were doing this that realized that old guitars may be a little better than new guitars. He gave me his number, and I said, "I'll be, you know, at this Holiday Inn and that Holiday Inn for the next several days." And he said, "Well," he says, "I'm going to be in Chicago for the next few days, bombing around." Because it turned out that the guitar might have ended up in Chicago. We were playing Atlanta, and usually I would go argue with the flight attendant to try to get it in the overhead rack or the coat closet. And we stayed up really late the night before. We were flying home to Denver, but we had to change planes in Chicago. I just didn't feel like debating the flight attendant that morning at 7 a.m. So we checked a couple of guitars, checked a Takamine D28 copy, and my Sunburst, and a couple other deals. And we got to Denver, and the carousel just kept going around, and there's no Takamine and there's no Sunburst. So I get a call in my hotel room a couple days after this concert, and this kid says, "Hey, man, I saw your guitar today." And he said, "Well," because he asked me at the gig, he said, "What's the serial number?" I said, 02176. He said, "It's hanging in a music store in Chicago, and it's got a hold tag on it, so somebody put some money down on it." And he gave me the number, and I called the guy up, and I said, you know, I'm freaking out. I was shaking, you know, because this is my baby. I'm like, and he said, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I think you have my guitar hanging on your wall." And he said, "What is it?" And I said, "It's a 1960 Sunburst Les Paul." He said, "Well, there's somebody put a down payment on that guitar. They're coming by to pick it up in the next couple of days." And I made up some bullshit about interstate selling stolen goods. Literally. I'm like, "Well, you can't, you know, you could have the FBI at your door." And he gets it down, and we do what they call an in-hand description. And I said, "There's a ding on the binding where a cymbal hit it and cut it. And here's the serial number, and it's got these kind of tuners, and it's got this scratch at a certain spot on the guitar." Then I can hear the guy just, you know. And he said, "Let me talk to my boss, and I'll call you back." And he called me back a half hour later and said, "Where do we send it?"
Wow.
I was like, "What can I do?" And he says, "It's fine. We'll just send it to you." And he wasn't like a big fan, or I didn't even pull any kind of like, start singing Mr. Bojangles over the phone. I did none of that, you know. But he could tell that, because, you know, it's a thing, man. I don't know if you've ever had an instrument stolen, but it's a thing. It's real personal. Yeah. So, you know, I got it back, and I played it on a few sessions. That was it. Took it off the road, obviously. And I had a custom guitar that a friend of mine named John Graven, a Les Paul copy that he had built me, and I played that for the rest of my Les Paul years. Then I switched to a Strat. But getting that thing back was amazing. And the guys, I was so moved by the way that they handled the situation at this guitar store that I had just bought a Les Paul TV model of 50s. You know what that is? It's like a Junior, but they're white, they're cream colored. And I just bought it, and I played it for a few months, and I just said, "What's your address?" And I just sent it to him. I gave it to him. It was the guy was he was very sweet about it. He's like, "Man, you didn't have to do that." I said, "Yeah, I kind of did. It was really cool what you did here."
Do you mind saying the name of the store?
It was called Wooden Music. It doesn't exist anymore.
Wooden Music in Chicago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But more importantly, the kid that found it for me, it was like, who was that masked man? I never got his name. And I think it would be, this is what happens with the passage of time. People pass away. And I need to talk to some of my Austin buddies because he might have been Charlie Wirtz, who was a famous, who passed away a few years ago. But it might have been him or one of his buddies that was driving, they had that station wagon. Because he did say he was from Austin, I think. I know, crazy. It's like, man. Well, I've asked George about it, but George, I'm not sure he would know. I know there were some stores down there. There's a place called One World Music that I bought a Super Ozark, which is kind of a plank Les Paul looking thing. It's got one pickup, but it's a horseshoe pickup, a lap steel pickup. So I bought that to play slide on. I still have it. But I bought it from those guys, and it could have been them. It could have been, there were 3 or 4. I'll tell you a guy that would know is Ray Benson. I just need to hit Ray up. I just saw him at the Mavericks thing last week. He's the coolest, isn't he?
He's like really fucking cool, man.
It doesn't get much cooler, and he was really, we started talking about shit, and I think I might end up going and singing on one of those duets records that he's doing. If I had it, by the way, here, I'd get it out for you to play.
We don't have it to show people, but I've played a couple bursts. I think they're amazing and beautiful or whatever. And I can kind of see, like Tom Bukovac handed me his burst, and then it's sort of the thing like
it's
Tony
59,
Rice,
right?
What am I supposed to do right now?
Right.
But I'm kind of like in his kitchen and kind of strumming a little bit and feeling it. And it was like, this is really cool, this is neat. But I saw Tom play that live.
Did you see it on Vince's thing on that?
No, this was one of the things he did with Guthrie,
right.
Trap, and
Right,
Jed Hughes.
right out at the guitar party.
It was at 3rd and Lindsley. It was one of those last year.
The guitar party, they call it. Yeah.
But I came out, and Tom's playing the burst, and I have to say, Tom is just a phenomenal, great player.
One of the great guitar players.
Right. Well, he's playing this, and it's like, when you hear the thing about the telly on steroids, that was the moment when I realized what people were talking about. Because it was so bright, and when I say bright, I mean all of the positive things about bright,
right,
and none of the negatives.
Not hurting your ears.
No, but it was just unbelievable. And a lot of that is his hands. A lot of that is, but it was such a, like, oh my goodness, what an amazing, beautiful instrument, and in the hands of a person that can handle it. Right. It really, it opened my eyes to what that thing I'd heard for 30 years about the telly on steroids. You
can get your hands on a reissue burst, and you can go down the pickup rabbit hole, which I do a lot. I play a Gibson was kind enough to do a clone of my 60 back in 2015, and Jamie has the prototype, and it's amazing. It looks, and then I had given Jamie a guitar years ago, the copy of the Sunburst after I got mine stolen, that had a real set of PAFs in it. So I said, Jamie, let's take the PAFs out of that and put them in the prototype, and it's like astounding. So it's got the pickups are like 60 years old, and what the custom shop did there is phenomenal. And I play one. They made me two. They made prototype 1 and 2. Mine is a dark burst because I never had a dark burst. My real one is like a lemon. What do they call it?
Yeah.
Lemon. Like almost an unburst. There's hardly any sun. It's kind of yellow, right? And man, I love my guitar. It's great. It sounds really good. And during the pandemic, I went to our to SIR and took them both out because nobody was there. So they let me in a room one day, and I took out my rig because it was sitting there quietly for 18 months. Took out the rig, turned it all up, played the new ones. Like, man, that thing sounds great. Played the old ones. Like, oh.
Exactly that feeling.
Yeah. And there's something, I don't know, it's something like molecules, man. It's the wood, it's the age of that lacquer, it's the age of that. I mean, you would think technically you could make a guitar out of concrete and put pickups in it and string it up, and it might sound pretty good, and it probably would. I mean, they made those Travis Bean aluminum guitars for years, and James Trussart from, I think that's his first name, that makes those beautiful metal Tellys and Strats. Steve Earle plays with. They're great. But I think it actually has a wooden neck on it. But again, in theory, it's just physics. It's like strings, magnets, blah, blah, pickups, right? But that wood does matter. That really old wood, there's something about it. I got a guitar I'll show you here when we're done, but that's in the other room that's really cool. That is my favorite, one of my favorite Strats. I've owned a bunch of Strats. I got the last one that got stolen. That I had one more after that, and the thing weighed a ton. It was a 57, and it had been refinished, but it was heavy. I didn't like the fact that it was heavy because one of the things I love about Fenders is they kind of are light, because I had a pinched nerve from playing a Les Paul. It was like, my arm used to just kind of dead. And I'm like, yeah, but it looks so cool. It sounds so great. It's like, well, just turn your amp up. But, I mean, I've got the Burst still in it undisclosed. It's not here. Yeah. It hasn't been for a while. But that's like for the grandkids, I don't even play it. I played it on one track on the Times Are Changing because Ray Kennedy produced that record, and his studio is like a candy shop. It's really claustrophobic and it's really funky, and parts of it aren't. The gear is like nothing on earth. He's got shit nobody else has. I mean, it's like, he'll tell you too, well, there's only 4 of these in the world, and they're in German, and he's been a collector, but guitars, he's got a ton of them, and they're not, I'm sure what you see on the walls altogether is worth quite a bit of dough, but he's not super precious. They're all hanging on string trees, all around the studio. And I walked in there with a couple of really nice old acoustics because I figured that's going to be my job. And I ended up playing this guitar we nicknamed Thumpy that Steve Earle and Lucinda have used exclusively on like 5 albums. Everybody brings their own shit, and Ray knows how to mic that guitar and set up great. It just beats a shit. J45 from maybe a 50 or a 51 J45, but just, that's such a great recording guitar.
So we're hearing that on car wheels on the gravel road.
Yeah. Yeah, you might be hearing Ray playing it sometimes, but Lucinda's definitely playing it as well. Yeah, and all the recent stuff too, it's certainly the stuff that he's cut here on her in the last 4 or 5 albums, and on, Feel All Right, and so many of those Corazon, some of those great Steve Earle records. So I'm playing that, and I go, oh, you want to play? And I had this Strat, this reissue Strat that I actually played on a couple tracks. I played some fills and a solo on this. It's a version of I Shall Be Released that we did with Larkin Poe came in and sang on it. And on the outro, there's like some spots, as track starts building. It'd be great to kind of go for it. And I plugged in the Strat, turned on all the pedals, nothing. It was good, but it just sounded kind of generic. And Ray pulls this like 62. It's when they called an SJ a Les Paul, because there was a transition year, right?
Yeah.
He pulls it down. It's got humbuck. It's beautiful. I plug it in, and it's still not quite there. So I go get the Burst and brought it in, and it was like, oh yeah, okay, That's why that's that. And then put it back and send it back home. Went away.